So, who enjoyed dressing up for Halloween and trick or treating when you were a child? Everyone. Yeah, okay. So, did anyone else, Linz and I were talking about this week, did anyone else have anxiety around Halloween as far as what to dress up as? Who were you going to be? What were you going to be? Anyone else have Halloween costume anxiety? Yeah, it's about a 50-50 here. Okay. Well, in life, whether it's Halloween or not, we can still have that anxiety about who should I show up as? Do you ever get that sometimes? Who should I show up as? Should I show up as the understanding sister or the angry, betrayed sister? Should I show up as the loving parent or the frustrated parent? Should I show up as the kind neighbor or the complaining neighbor? We all get to decide during life how we're going to show up. And then we're also being asked to show up in certain ways, right? Either by family or friends or society at large. And sometimes it's in alignment with how we feel and what we believe, and sometimes it's not. And so it goes back to, I was thinking about, again, with our meditation too, that child that still resides within us, our younger selves. And those younger selves are still within us trying to figure out life and how to reconcile with certain things that we were taught or told or believed, told to believe or experienced. And sometimes we feel like we have to hide ourselves or parts of ourselves in order to protect that child within us. Are you with me? Yeah. So just like with Halloween, in other words, I can show up and play the part of princess, right? I'll show up and I'll look perfect. I'll do exactly what you'd like me to do. I will respond to your every need. I will wave. I will be obedient, but I may be betraying my own needs. Or I can show up as a goblin or a ghoul, where I'm really, really angry and my feelings are scary and I want you to, boo, go away. Because there's a need that's not being met within us. And so then that child that's living within us is now still lashing out, right? I have a neighbor. She's kind of known in the neighborhood as like the grumpy neighbor. No one wants to be known as the grumpy neighbor, right? But I think about what got her to grumpy neighbor. Something had to happen, right? Something had to happen to get her to there. And what's happening is she's just trying to protect herself, right? And so to protect myself, I put on my armor and I stomp around and I be the knight in my armor, right? We put on our costumes to play the role we need to play to protect ourselves, and usually it's protecting that scared, younger part of ourselves that's still there within us. So Halloween gives us that opportunity to remember to take care of that inner child, to take care of the part of us that can still get scared or worried or angry, and that we can be our most authentic selves. Because that younger part of us experienced a lot. Things that in past generations they wouldn't have considered trauma or unusual or damaging. But we now know that those seemingly small hurts and events do add up. And it does affect our nervous system and how we act to situations now. So what happened to us here can affect how we show up now. And so we can't be our highest spiritual expressions if we're loaded down with these past hurts that are hiding under a costume. Whatever costume we decide to put on that day. And so it's when we start to take care of that part of ourselves that needs to still be heard. That child, that teenager, that young adult that still needs to be heard and say, you know what, you're doing okay, I'm here for you. I, right now, today, can be the adult, the parent that you needed in that moment. And when we do that, we have more peace. Because when we have an experience of a situation where suddenly I'm feeling really sad or mad or frustrated, well, I can sit with it and I can acknowledge it. I can say, hey, I see you, anger, but I'm not you. I see you, sadness. I'm experiencing sadness, but I'm not sadness. Or Eckhart Tolle, the famous author on our first slide, wrote, rather than being your thoughts and emotions, be the awareness behind them. Just like when you're in the ghost costume, right? Be the eyes behind the eyes. I can be the awareness of my feelings. Because then I can start to get curious. I can start to ask the questions of, when did I first experience this feeling? What would I like to say to my younger self? How could I comfort myself right now? What adjustments or changes can I make so that this kind of situation or person doesn't trigger me again, or trigger me in such a big way again in the future? We can start to look at the fact that everything can help us grow into our divinity, reinforced here on the next slide. That everything can help us grow into our divinity if we choose to let it. So once we comfort, we have something that happens, we start to get curious. We go, oh yeah, I remember. Like I started realizing in my 20s, authoritarian figures at work really scared me. And I started to realize, okay, that's right, because my grandmother, who I adored and loved, by the way, also strong hand, very Victorian, and, you knew she loved you, and it was very strict. And so I started to realize, oh, okay, again, no judgment for her, but now I'm starting to just understand, where is this coming from? Okay, I can get curious with it. I can comfort the scared child who didn't understand. I'm here for you, little girl. And I can start just saying, hey, it's okay. Who am I really? I can start asking that as I comfort myself. Who am I really? I can bring myself back to my authentic self. I don't have to be who others need me to be. I don't need to show up a certain way in order to protect myself or keep me safe. I can be the truth of who I am. And that's a divine expression. That is pure being. I can show up my most authentic way. So I was just listening to a podcast with author and speaker Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Great podcast. It was called The Art of Being Yourself. She was being interviewed by Chase Jarvis, but it was about how to be your authentic self. And she says the best way to be our authentic selves, once we're like, oh, I'm hurt and I don't really want to show up as this other not real me. I want to show up as I want to step into my power, my authentic me. But she says the first way how you do that is you tell the truth. All the time, she says. Tell the truth of how you feel, what you think, what you believe to be true, and it starts with yourself. And you can do it kindly, you can do it respectfully, but tell the truth for yourself. It seems scary, because in our culture, that feels scary to tell the truth sometimes, right? Yeah. But she says we make our own world safe through our own honesty. We make our own world safe through our own honesty. She says you're not doing yourself any favors by holding anything in. In fact, when we hold those emotions in, it makes our bodies sick. She says life choices and changes are scary, but as author Joseph Campbell wrote, it's here on this slide, you have to give up the life you know in order to get the life that's waiting for you. Wow. You have to give up the life you know in order to get the life that's waiting for you. And of course, if you're in the in-between and you don't know what that is, it feels really scary. And so we go back to comforting ourselves. It's okay I don't know the answers. It's okay I'm in the in-between. It's okay, I don't know what's waiting for me. We can comfort that part of ourselves. So, what Elizabeth Gilbert is telling us is that the way out of hard, fearful times is through honesty, but then also, again, getting curious and compassionate with ourselves and with others. Go back to your child's self. Be curious. Just look at the feelings. That's interesting. I'm experiencing that. Get curious instead of fearful. So many times we just jump right to like, oh, I'm really sad about this. Why am I so sad? I'm a good Unity student, right? Why am I mad or upset or feeling negative about it? I'm a good Unity student. Why am I feeling that way? Instead of jumping there, because does that feel good at all? No. Instead of going right to there, instead employing curiosity. Interesting. I'm feeling really angry today or sad today, frustrated today. And then compassion. The compassion comes in with it just is. This is just what today is. Today it's just sad. Today it's just frustrated. Because compassion really reminds us that the imperfect is perfect. Hear that again. Compassion reminds us that the imperfect is perfect. And I was thinking that this is where meditation is helpful. You know, whether it's sitting in meditation, walking in meditation, mandala coloring meditation, writing. I tell you a lot about my writing with love. This is like my primary way to meditate now, right? Sitting down with a journal, centering myself and just saying, "Dear love, what do you have for me today?" And getting quiet and just allowing myself to write. And it's wonderful to have this meditation time because it does allow us to be peaceful in the moment. But what it really does is it transfers over to other parts in our life. What meditation teaches us, no matter how you do your meditation, is that we can get through our daily lives and challenges by being honest with ourselves. In meditation, what do? We observe. We sit with. We can comfort that younger part of ourselves. We can get curious, employ compassion. We can breathe. So meditation itself allows us to work through all those things that may be inside that want to come up to be healed. Because if it's coming up, then it's coming up to be healed, to be looked at. And so we get curious and we get compassionate. Our second unity principle says we are inherently good because we are connected to an expression of spirit. We are inherently good because we are connected to an expression of spirit. That is true no matter what costume or disguise we may put on during our day. That is still our truth, that we are inherently good. Even my neighbor. I'm not going to call her grumpy neighbor anymore, right? Instead, see her as the child or younger self, young woman who's hurting, who has a healing that has not been healed yet. So no matter what costume, role, disguise I decide to put on, I can say, hey, wait, but I am connected to an expression of spirit. That's the truth of who I am. And so let me express life, goodness, God, love itself. So when we're in the situations, or there's people who remind you of something painful or challenging in your past, you don't need to put on the costume or persona, the protective gear. You can show up as your authentic self. You can bring comfort. Comfort yourself first and comfort another. You can bring compassion to the situation for yourself and another. And when you bring compassion and that loving kindness both to yourself and another, then you're expressing your true self, your God self, your divine self. I love this daily word from last year's Halloween. It says, dressing up on Halloween can be a great adventure. Choosing a character, finding a costume, transforming myself into a new identity is all a part of the fun. I choose who I want to be and how I want to live in the world, and the same is true for my life. I am so much more than my history, my choices, and the roles I play in life. Like a Halloween costume I can take off, I can also change how I show up in the world. Taking off limitation, self doubt, insecurity. I then claim my identity as a divine being, the living expression of God. This is my true identity, the enduring, changeless truth of who I am. A divine being, the living expression of God. This is your true identity, the enduring, changeless truth of who you are. So, how do you show up as your most authentic self? In summary, on this slide, be compassionate and curious with yourself. Comfort yourself when feelings arise. And that includes comforting that inner child or younger self. Remember that you have feelings, but you're not the feelings. Don't let that drag you down. Be honest with yourself and others of how you're feeling. And then return to the truth of who you are, an extension of the living expression of the divine on earth. Because no matter what you wear today on Halloween or any day, the truth is that you are yet another example of the magnificence of the universe, and your magnificence is changeless no matter what you're wearing. And so it is. Happy Halloween.